There's a specific kind of exhaustion, and it doesn't come from doing too little. It comes from doing everything wrong. Not wrong in a moral sense or even on purpose, but architecturally wrong. This isn't going to be a motivational story. Think of it more as a diagnostic of a flawed design.
And this right here is the absolute core of that diagnosis. We're all conditioned to believe that movement equals progress, right? That if we're busy, we must be moving forward. But the thing is, effort is absolutely no guarantee of a result. It's entirely possible to burn an enormous amount of energy and end up exactly where you started.
This image, it just captures that feeling perfectly. I mean, really picture it. Every single step is real effort. Every action is genuine. But the shape of the path itself guarantees that no matter how fast you run, you just return to where you began. This isn't a failure of will, it's a failure of geometry.
So how does an architecture like this get built? It's not an accident. It's actually constructed from real actions, but they're taken in the wrong sequence for all the wrong reasons. So let's dissect the anatomy of one of these circles.
Okay, so the first loop. This started back in 2021, when the internet was just buzzing with these stories of overnight success from NFTs. And the impulse was simple, right? Just participate. So digital art was created, it was uploaded, listed for sale, and then just crickets. Nothing.
So when we diagnose this, the architectural flaw becomes really, really clear. The failure wasn't a lack of effort, it was walking into a complex system with zero understanding of its rules. There was no audience, there was no strategy beyond just showing up. Activity was mistaken for progress. And just like that, the first loop closed.
All right, so the next attempt. This one seemed a lot more grounded. An online store, but using WhatsApp Business. The barrier to entry was super low, and the potential audience felt immediate. Friends, contacts. It seemed logical. It seemed like a clear path forward. But the idea collapsed before it even started. Why? Because it had no foundation. No supplier relationships, no way to actually fulfill orders, no marketing framework whatsoever. The visible part of the idea, the store itself, it sounded good. But the invisible architecture needed to support it was completely missing. And the circle turned once more.
Now, this is where it gets tricky. The third loop actually produced results. Reselling internet data brought in real money. I mean, it was tiny, but it was tangible. And that created this dangerous illusion of progress. It was just enough to keep the movement going.
The diagnosis here is absolutely critical. This wasn't a business, it was just a series of transactions. It required constant, personal presence. The second the effort stopped, the income stopped. And that is the definition of a hustle, not a system. It had this unbreakable, low ceiling, which sealed the third loop of the circle shut.
And the final loop, this really represented the lowest point. Chasing pennies on survey platforms. Hours and hours were invested for almost no return. And what's really critical is that during all this frantic activity, real skills, like graphic design, were just abandoned because they felt too slow. The circle was now complete, and it was spinning faster and faster every day.
Okay, so now that we've mapped out the entire circle, we can perform the diagnosis. There is a single systemic error that drives every single one of these loops. It's the engine that keeps the whole circle turning.
I want you to look at all 4 of those loops. The NFTs, the WhatsApp store, the data reselling, the surveys. They all share a common thread. Every single decision was optimized for just one variable. What do you think it was?
The answer is speed. How fast can I make money? What is the quickest path to a result? But here's the fatal flaw in that logic. Speed isn't a strategy, it's a feeling. And when you optimize for a feeling instead of a system, you end up making choices that feel productive, but achieve nothing in the long run.
But look, this isn't some personal failing. It's a well-known cognitive error called present bias. When we're under pressure, our brains are literally wired to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future ones. It's why the quick win of data reselling felt so much more attractive than the slow, hard work of learning a real skill. The problem wasn't a lack of intelligence, it was a lack of mental bandwidth, all of it consumed by urgency.
So, if the circle is basically a neurological trap, how in the world do you break it? Well, it didn't happen with some sudden moment of inspiration. It happened because of complete and total exhaustion, a moment of forced stillness where running just wasn't possible anymore.
And in that quiet, a new question finally emerged. Not, how do I move faster? But, Why does nothing I build ever last? It was a question focused on durability, and this was the first truly architectural question. It completely changed the geometry of the problem.
And the answer to that question? Well, it required a completely new mental model, a new way of building. It meant abandoning the architecture of the circle and very deliberately constructing something else, a spiral.
You know, from above, a circle and a spiral look almost identical, but their function is entirely different. A circle always returns you to the exact same spot. A spiral, on the other hand, returns you to a similar position but one level higher. One demands you work harder and harder just to stay in place. The other ensures that your work compounds over time. The difference is the architecture.
The good news is a design error can be corrected. And the correction is really a two-step process. First, understand. Before you do anything, understand the system you're entering. You have to know what compounds and what just expires. And second, build depth. Build depth before you chase speed. You have to resist that temptation to move fast if you don't have a foundation.
This right here, this is the architectural principle that separates the circle from the spiral. Depth compounds, speed expires. The things you build with depth, skills, relationships, systems, they grow over time. But the results you get from speed alone? They're temporary. They vanish the moment you stop running.
So what does it actually mean to build a spiral? Well, every action you take has to make a permanent deposit. What's that? It's a skill you develop, a relationship you build, an understanding you deepen, a system you create. If an action deposits nothing that lasts after it's over, then it's just another loop in the circle.
And that brings us to the final question, the one you need to ask yourself. Look at your work, at your efforts, at everything you're doing. Can you see the difference between your movement and your progress? The answer lies in the architecture of your actions.